What's the dumbest thing that your friend came up to impress everybody, but failed dramatically? 2 stories stand out. 1. He was a Gulf War veteran. Except, dude, you were born in 1981 and the Gulf War was 1991 to 1992, when we were in 5th grade. Congrats on being an 11-year-old combat veteran. 2. His uncle had taught him to fly an Air Force jet. By his telling, his uncle was a mechanic in the Air Force. They had one jet that apparently nobody could fix. But this uncle, through sheer mechanical savantism, fixed the jet. The Air Force, ignoring all fiscal law, apparently was so grateful to this mechanic that they gifted him the jet. He then flew the jet to our tiny local airport, where he taught my acquaintance how to fly it. Please tell me an adult told you number 2. It was an adult. I'm not the person, but you asked me to say it. I told her I could not keep hearing her go on about her boyfriend who had started using and selling drugs. Let me know when she cut ties with that crowd. Less than 2 hours later, I get a breathless call from a strange number. She has packed up and got out of his place, was staying in a motel. I asked how she got the money, and she mumbled something about a friend who met her and gave her money but was out of town, and she couldn't stay at their actual place. Huh? I figured it was crap but decided to play along and make her give herself away. I said, "Oh, my sister-in-law is nearby, I'm gonna send her over with some groceries." "Which motel is it?" Immediately she starts going on. No, I don't need that, don't send anyone," but would not tell me the motel name. Said, "Oh, I don't know." I asked how you check into a motel and not know the name of it. Go look outside, read me the sign. She just kept dodging around and saying not to worry about it. She said she would call me back the next day, and we rang off. On a hunch, I called the number back and her roommate at the boyfriend's place picked up. She hadn't gone anywhere, just called me from a different number. The roommate put her on the phone, and she started yelling at me for calling her back. I told her when she quit lying and really got help, let me know. That was the last time I heard from Mom for a while. Not a friend really, but this one coworker of mine once told me a few years back he was contracted to paint his sorority house, and while he was painting, about 8 girls, fresh out of the showers, wearing only towels, came in and got naked while they were working and just basically tried to have sex with him. Mind you, this guy is a 55-years-old redneck with about 3 teeth in his mouth, so I'm calling bullshit on that. As someone who sells paint to painting contractors, this story absolutely tracks. Not the part where the sorority girl orgy starts, the part where an over-the-hill house painter tries to make his life sound like a Norpo for macho points. He said that his father worked for Nintendo. His father was my maths teacher. In retrospect, this is so ridiculous, but as a kid, I had a friend who swore he had a twin brother. It was pretty obvious that he didn't, since he lived in the same neighborhood as the majority of our friend group, and we all spent a lot of time out and about together on bikes, etc. Not to mention that all of our parents were friendly, and we had all of our birthday parties, barbecues, etc. together as kids. But any time he was pressed about it, he would say that his twin brother was living with his aunt in Utah. This lasted until we graduated from high school, and now whenever one of us sees him in public, we always make sure to ask if his brother is doing good, and if he's been to Utah lately. Hope he turned out alright. Odd thought, but was his home life good? Sometimes kids develop false realities as a way to cope. Example: twin brother lives a good life with the cool aunt. Your logical reasoning made me sad. Don't worry. My home life was only mildly screwed up. I turned out pretty okay, but I made up this same lie. I didn't go quite as far with it, but definitely told a couple of people I had a twin sister. I told people my family was so poor, we could only afford to send one of us to school each day, so we switched days. Sometimes I would pretend to be the other twin. I also made up elaborate stories about my house being haunted. So much so, that apparently some kid complained to their parent, who complained to the school, who spoke to my mom, who had to have a conversation with me about scaring other children. Like I said, I'm mostly okay now, except for the hauntings. I no longer have this friend, but I used to. He used to claim that 1. His dad was in Green Day. 2. Green Day taught him how to walk and talk. 3. He lived in Hollywood for one day of his life and met several hundred celebrities during that day. 4. He was the fastest runner on the planet, but his mom told him to disguise his actual speed because people would make fun of him. 5. He was in a rock band at age 9. 6. His dad was also a video game developer and made special games for him as presents. 7. His parents got him a bazooka for Christmas. 8. He had a Pokemon called Mew3. 9. He was Hitler's great-grandson. I'll let you take a guess how many of these claims were actually true, but at least he was a kid and not a full-grown adult. Him, standing at the foothills of the Himalayas gazing at the peaks of the Andes. Me, but you can't. Him, been there have you? No? Well, I think I know what I saw. Me, K. Oh God, he wasn't a flat earther, was he? No, long before that. Just a chronic bullshitter. I had a friend in high school tried to convince everyone that he came from a filthy rich family. Eventually, after a multitude of demonstrations, I became involved in one of his elaborate ploys. He came up with a story of how he needed a ride home after school and I didn't have a reason not to, so I obliged. He directed me towards one of the most wealthy neighborhoods in my city and had me follow another car through the gates of a private community of mansions. He told me to wait for a second after I dropped him off at one of the huge-ass estates. Minutes later he came out of the house visually distressed and told me to drive away and leave him at a nearby park. I don't remember the story I believed him telling me as an explanation, but I later found out that he was actually from a family on welfare, and the house that he brought me to belonged to a person he briefly met, and he was angrily kicked out after he entered their house spontaneously without mentioning anything to anyone that lived there. Afterwards I realized that his plan was for me to drop him off and validate his huge-ass house and wealth to everyone at school. The stories he told everyone about his wealth fell through soonly afterwards. I knew one guy who would pretty much one-up everything you said to him. If you said something like, "I have a bad back and have to take medication from time to time," he'd go on about how he had surgery several times on his back, and had seen many doctors and was taking very strong medication, and so on, and so forth. Among the things he claims to have experienced, he said he 1. Climbed several mountains and was preparing to climb Mt. Everest. 2. Won poetry and writing awards. 3. Had beaten famous sportsmen before they were famous when they were in junior leagues. 4. Had worked at Google and Apple. 5. Was to become an Olympian, but had his appendix removed shortly before he would have been picked. 6. Had dated a famous actress when they were both younger. 7. Flew hang gliders, skydived, skied, rafted, scuba dived and sailed in several countries in the world. 8. Had beaten a grand master at chess. You get the idea? Funny thing is that surprisingly, he is a really nice dude. He just talks way too much about himself and his exploits. Taekwondo a couple years back, this guy had no friends, had the wildest stories. Told me how he was lost in a field with nothing but a machete, decided to throw it, and it killed a cow. Or how he said that he was in Taekwondo because his family was being hunted by spies in Russia and that's why he moved to Canada. He's a second Dan black belt while I'm a first Dan. Still don't get how he thought we'd believe his stories, including he was 13 at the time. Don't know that I have this friend in adulthood, but in childhood there was a classmate who consistently told fibs about the most random things. That he could hypnotize his dog when challenged. He claimed he needed a strawberry to do it. And one theme that came up on a recurrent basis was his desire to get attention for nearly getting seriously hurt. Students were bombarded with stories of how he almost broke my insert name of appendage here while skiing or other activities. Then, one day at school we were having a discussion about what careers we wanted to pursue as adults. I don't recall what other students said, because things were about to go rogue quickly. This young boy said that he wanted to be a fireman. While we thought this was nice, he seemed to be focused on how it could lead to him being hurt. One girl in the class asked, "Why don't you look for a job where you don't get hurt like that?" He replied, "Well, I want to get hurt. I want to die a hero." Pin drop. This was in 2nd grade. Soon thereafter his mother regularly showed up in the classroom to help out with grading papers and managing the students. I didn't recognize it at the time, but I'm inclined to believe this red flag of a statement prompted the teacher to notify the family, who responded by sending the mom to spend more time closer to him to help. I hope that guy's doing okay now. Guy was called Sean and I went to high school with him. He didn't seem to have any awareness of how ludicrous and totally unbelievable his stories were. And when he told stories, he conflated the tepid reactions of embarrassment and disbelief for expressions of disinterest, so he'd make the stories more unbelievable. The stupidest one he ever told was basically this. So I was at the beach on the weekend surfing, and as I was catching a wave into shore, this great white shark came right up beside my board. So I hopped off my board onto the shark's back and then rode him into the shallows. Really? I mean, who in the world would ever believe something like that? This was back when we were still in our teenage years, but still. A friend of mine had an elaborate lie that he was a professional motocross driver during when we were 12 years old. All his friends knew he was pulling it out off his ass. He never went to train or competitions. He didn't even own a freaking motorcycle, but still told us about it several times a week. Unprompted. This went on for more than a year. We still give him shit about it. He knew someone who held in their pee for so long they lost their sense of smell. I once held my pee in for so long I lost my ability to stand still temporarily. Beat that. I once held in my pee so long it went away, all on its own. But for some reason, at that exact same time, my pants became wet. Still haven't been able to figure that one out yet. That she had a fake toe because she broke it. Is that even a thing? How can you say that to me while we are all looking at your real toe? Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.